Welcome to the Winning Move podcast. We have another amazing guest on today, my friend Mike Hambright. Mike owns several different successful companies. And we have Investor Fuel, your apartment syndication business, Investor Machine, which I think is an amazing business. And then what else? What am I missing?
That might be it for today. Oh, Investor Fuel, obviously the mastermind. I don't know if you said that. And then, but I have flipped hundreds of houses. So for the first 12 years I was in business, I was pretty much only house flipper, rehabber, have a rental portfolio of single families. But ultimately, over the past couple of years, from an investment standpoint, moved on for the most part to multifamily. That said, I'm going to look at a deal today that somebody sent me for a single family house. So still do the deals as they come. And we're always rehabbing houses because we've got a rental portfolio.
Yeah.
Had a rental just burn out that we've got to rehab. All that stuff never ends if you keep some of them. So
exactly. And we just sponsored Investor Fuel. Calm Editions did, so that'll be really fun.
Yeah. Glad to have you guys inside of that.
Sorry, how did you have a corporate career before this, dude?
Yeah. So my wife and I are corporate refugees, is what we call ourselves. That's what I call us, at least. We kind of followed the traditional path of the job, and worked out well until it didn't, and then kind of transitioned in 2008, about 14 years ago, I guess, into real estate investing. That's the short version of the story, but
why didn't it work out? Like, what was your trigger? What was finally the tipping point?
So, I had a great job. And I worked directly for the CEO of a $5 billion company. So it was in many ways a dream job, but then he got fired and I was his kind of outspoken right-hand man, and they just kind of cleaned house. And in fact, that company of 35,000 employees doesn't even exist anymore. So 35,000 people ended up losing their job. So, and then I went to work for another company that was flying high, and it was a startup, but grew to a $500 million company pretty fast, and was flying high. I was making a lot of money, more money than I ever made before. And then they filed for bankruptcy because they weren't as profitable as they needed to be, obviously. And it was just this realization of, like, wherever I go, I mean, if there's anything I have, it's a solid work ethic. I've always worked really hard, and this just realization of, like, it's two data points now. I'm starting to see a trend here. Like, where's this going to go next? And at that time, my wife had left her job as a consultant. She made more money than I did. And she left her job for me to move across the country and take this other job. As soon as we moved there, she got pregnant and, ended up not getting a job at all for the first time in her life. She doesn't really know what to do when she's not working. She's a workhorse as well. And then our son was born. And then I left this company that had just filed for bankruptcy after my son was 2 months old. So it was this realization of, like, I have to take control here one way or another. And, if I can trust anybody, I can trust myself. With all that said, having no prior entrepreneurial experience, I mean, lemonade stands and all sorts of stuff when I was growing up, right? But not a real business. The learning curve is steep, as you know, right? So it wasn't easy, but there's lots of lessons in there for sure. But I wouldn't change it for the world now, right?
All right. So Wayne Royal, what's going on, Wayne? And then, all right. So there's a lot to unpack. So how did that first company go out of business so fast? $1 billion?
So I'll just tell you, it was Radio Shack. Had been around for 100 years. Great company. Honestly, it was a great business until the short version of the story is, they had to figure themselves out, like, how to survive in the modern era, and weren't moving fast enough at that. The bigger issue is they kind of got raided at the end, and just the stock just kind of got raided, and they got, the runway was shortened on however much time they had left. But it was a great company to work for. There were a lot of great people there that have been there for a long time. And so I was a young guy with no kids, no family, only there for a few years. So it wasn't, it was easier for me to recover than it might've been for somebody that was there for a couple of decades and had that happen.
So what did you go to college for?
So I have an undergrad in finance, and out of undergrad worked in kind of corporate finance type jobs for about 4 or 5 years, then went back to grad school because I thought I needed more formal education because I wasn't happy where I was at, and I thought that was what you did, you know. And the truth
Yeah.
is I was the first person in my family to even go to college at all. So my parents are great. I have a great family, but they weren't really able to kind of guide me on that path, right? But I very much came from a blue collar family. And so I was just kind of figuring it out myself and thought I needed to go back and get more formal education. And got an MBA at the University of Texas in Austin, which is where I met my wife at. She was in the same program. And there, you know, and MBAs tend to be a little more general. So it was more of like probably a little more marketing, a little more strategy type positions.
Hmm.
And so, and I was trying to, honestly, I was trying to not be a finance guy anymore. And so kind of use that opportunity to reposition a little bit. But in hindsight, you know, it's easy for me to say, because it's the truth. I have a son now that's 14. I mean, I do want him to go to college, even though I know it's not as valuable as I used to think it was. And I don't think you have to go to college.
Uh-huh.
But I think my son, so first off, we can afford it, right? He's not going to go into a bunch of debt to do this. And
Exactly.
secondly, I think my son, in our instance, he needs some opportunity to grow up a little bit more than what I think he'll be just 3.5 years from now. And I think part of that is an opportunity to learn about yourself. Are there other ways to do it? Yes. If he decides to not go to college, he'll be fine. But, you know, time will tell.